female womb, what we are looking at, okay? Now, every human being, every female that has a uterus has a lining inside the uterus. So if you are looking at this pinkish stuff that you see here inside, that's the lining of your uterus, that's the endometrium. That's the endometrium inside your uterus, okay? That's the endometrium. Now, what is happening? What is happening with the endometriosis? So when you ovulate and you have your period, the lining sheds out. And when the lining, the uterine lining, which is the endometrium lining, sheds out, this is your vaginal canal. This is your vaginal canal. So your period comes out through your vaginal canal. Down here is the vagina. Through the vagina, you have your period. That is the normal process of a female. Dots everywhere. There are black dots everywhere, around here. And if you see, there are black dots here too, where there are black dots everywhere, if you're looking, okay? So there are black dots. And these black dots are the endometrial dots. That's endometriosis. So it was in here, and now it goes out here. And now it surrounds any organ. It can attack any organ in your body. So endometriosis, how did it get from here to here? Now this is the myth that nobody will tell you. This is the information that every woman has to know. There is something called retrograde of your blood. So in simple language, when you bleed, when you shed from your uterus, you shed and you are bleeding. For your ovaries, you have a period and you bleed. Some of the blood coming out, instead coming out through your vagina, makes its way retrograde back into your abdominal cavity. This blood actually that comes back has cells, endometrial cells that shed, because every month the endometrial cell in here sheds, and that's when you bleed out. But some of it retrograde goes back inside your body. And now what happens? When it went back inside your body, it attaches itself to any organ. It can attach itself to your ovary, to your tubes, to your appendix, to your colon, to your intestine, to your stomach, to your kidneys, to your blood vessels. It can go to your brain. It can go anywhere. Now, what happens? How does that happen in the human body? How is it happening? When the retrograde of some of the blood, instead going out through your vagina, there's retrograde and it goes back into your bodily cavity. Here is what happens, because the blood that comes back is in their endometrial cells. These cells and retrograde, when they return back into your bodily cavity, what happens is, first of all, it's not supposed to be, but it happens, right? And it doesn't happen to all women, but it happens to a lot of women, because a lot of women suffer from PCOS, from endometriosis, from Cushing's disease. Now, what happens is this: when it comes back, and it's not supposed to be this way, it attaches itself now, like you see here. You see the black dots here, it attaches itself now to different parts of your organs of your body. As I said, it can attach itself to any part, any organ that is inside your bodily cavity. And what happens is, and now it creates, these endometrial cells is creating a life of its own, It creates its own blood supply, So now it lives out of your uterus, it lives in your bodily cavity, it attached itself to your abdominal wall, to abdominal muscle, it attached itself to your appendix, it attached itself to your gallbladder, it attached itself to your colon, it attached itself to your intestines, and now it's starting to develop inside these bodily organs. It creates its own blood vessels, blood supply. So it's like a parasite. Now it's attached itself here. It's attached itself out here. It's attached anywhere. Wherever it attaches itself, these endometrial cells, they come from the retrograde of your period. When it attaches itself, it now starts growing its own blood vessels. And it mimics your period every month, and it sheds blood, but the blood has nowhere to go. And that is when it causes this horrible inflammation, and when the endometriosis wraps itself around. So if you can look very carefully, like you can see that there's a wrap around here. It wraps itself around any bodily organ in the body. It wraps itself around. So if you look this way, you can see it wraps itself around, and it creates like a Play-Doh. And now, when it wraps itself, two things are happening when you have endometriosis. The endometrial cells that came back into your bodily cavity are now having a life of its own. They don't need blood from your period, from your ovaries, because they are like a parasite. They are creating their own blood supply, and they bleed internally in your bodily cavity. This is why there is so much pain. There is so much pain for women that have endometriosis. There is so much pain that you have pain everywhere. There is so much pain when you go to the bathroom even, because sometimes endometriosis can go and attach itself to your intestine, attach itself to your colon. And when you go to the bathroom for number 2, it is so painful because you are straining, and it goes through your intestines. Your poop goes through your intestines. It stretches, and it chokes up the intestine. It chokes up the intestine because the colon, because it wraps itself around. It chokes up your gallbladder. It chokes up your appendix. It can choke up any organ. So here, when you look at it, it just looks like little dots, little black dots. That's when it starts. But once after it started, it creates like a Play-Doh. It multiplies. So it burrows in deep into your skin tissue. So let's say this is your tube, right? So it burrows into the tube. It burrows in like a worm. It burrows in. And then it creates, and it sucks nutrition and fluids from the organs that it attaches itself, and it creates its own blood supply. And because once upon a time it used to live here, I assume there's some memory glands, and there's some kind of memory in this endometrial cell, and they bleed. What they used to be doing normally every month, bleed through the uterus. They bleed, but they bleed into your bodily cavity. And so today, it is very important to understand that even if you have a hysterectomy, and even when they take out your ovaries or they take out your uterus, so you no longer have menstruation, you no longer bleed. But very often, because so many doctors have no knowledge, they're really not educated in this, they don't invest enough time to get educated and study the woman's body. A lot of doctors poo-poo you. And I want to share with you something, and I want to tell you something. A lot of doctors that poo-poo you, move away. Because if a doctor doesn't have the knowledge, and he is not honest enough to say, I really don't know very much about the subject, I would recommend you to somebody else. But he poo-poos you and he tells you there's nothing wrong with you really, and you really don't have a problem, and they poo-poo it, and you then feel like an idiot, and you feel that you are being disregarded, and your emotions are disregarded. Move away. And I will tell you something. I will share something with you so you understand why I'm so passionate and why I'm talking so much about this subject and why I'm giving so much education to women and to people. Here is something that you have to understand, even with my own daughter. And I am my own daughter's best advocate because she's my only child and she suffered since she was 14. And of course, she couldn't have any children. She suffered since she was 14. She had 18 surgeries. She lost 70% of her organs. And in many cases, when she was very young and when 30 something years ago, nobody knew what endometriosis is, okay? Nobody knew what endometriosis is. And we went to see a doctor. And that was probably, she was maybe 16 or close to 16. And that doctor's suggestion was that she get a hysterectomy because that would probably solve her problem if she really fears and complains so much that she has pain. So obviously I took my daughter and I left that hospital and that doctor because I said to myself, he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I will not have a hysterectomy done on a 16-year-old child just because a doctor said. But unfortunately, yeah, there's more that is known today about PCOS and endometriosis, but still a lot of doctors disregard the feeling and the complaints of women. And they are poor, very hairy, right? So you get overweight, you get very hairy, all these things where what girl wants to have hair on her face? What girl wants to have hair on her face? What girl wants to just because it happens? It doesn't happen like this. So the bottom line of this story is that a part of her uterus removed and she had process of the 18 surgeries. And so the consensus was by her surgeon, though, she will have no pain and she will have no endometriosis. This was the assumption. And for a couple of years after the surgery, the last surgery, she was fine. She didn't have pain, and we said, well, maybe we won. Maybe we have the upper hand now because she has no pain. And so the truth of the matter is that was not the truth, and that was not what really was happening. And endometriosis, as I explained to you, will grow in your abdominal cavity anywhere. And in the last 6 months, my daughter was complaining. She said, Mom, I have pain back the kidneys. I have pain back. I have pain in my kidneys. I have pain. Now, doctors would say, you have no uterus, you don't bleed, you don't have endometriosis. Well, as I can tell you, and as I shared this, I can tell you factually that is not true. You can have everything removed and you can still have endometriosis. And I'll give you now a factual case that's happening as we are talking. So I was here about 2 months ago and I was doing a podcast with my daughter. We were sitting in the other room and we were doing a podcast talking about this subject and what she went through. And when we finished the first podcast, my daughter had to lie down on the floor on the carpet. She said, Mom, I have so much pain. And in the last 2 months, she's taking Tylenol 4 every single day because she has so much pain. And she said, it's pulling. So eventually I said, okay, this is not normal. This makes sense to me. So I was looking, I said, back, that's the kidneys. And she has, in amongst the surgeries that she had, she also had, they put stents in her kidneys through her urethra because endometriosis attacked her urethra. The urethra is where when your kidneys make urine, and then there are like 2 straws that come down from your kidneys and then they go into your bladder. So they put stents in there and they removed, excised and burned the endometriosis that attacked the urethra. So I said, okay, she had stents put, she's complaining about the pain. This doesn't make sense. I have to find a specialist. And so I found that there are now doctors, there are specialists, which are endourologists, so endometriosis and urologists. So they treat exactly this condition, endometriosis and urological problems. So anything to do with your kidneys, with your urethra, with your bladder. And he was at the University of Miami. So I made an appointment. We live in Miami. So we live in Miami, but I go to Atlanta because I have a clinic in Bay Harbor, in Miami Beach, skincare and laser clinic, and I have another one in Atlanta. So I'm just clarifying this happened in Miami, and I made the appointment at which happens to be a hospital that has quite a few specialties. And we went to see the endourologist about, I think it was 3 weeks ago, and we explained him my daughter's history. And so he suggested that we do a CT scan. Then we do a CT scan to see what is going on. And then I looked him in the eye and I said, okay. But before we went in, my daughter said, and what, Mom, what will happen if he will say I have nothing and then they will disregard my pain? I said, don't worry, it ain't going to happen. Nobody will disregard your pain. If he disregards your pain, we will find somebody else. And so, because I know she has pain, but she is so worried that because in the last 5 years, she came across several doctors here in South Florida and they were shit and they were no good. So, because her surgeon, the original surgeon, is in Atlanta and he's the #1 excision surgeon in the whole world. And he did 14 out of the 18 surgeries. But we live in Miami. I just traveled to Atlanta, but I live here. So she was nervous. I said, don't worry, this is not going to happen. They can poo-poo it. I don't poo-poo it. I'm your mother, and I advocate for you, and I will find the right doctor, and I will demand surgery, and I will find out what is going on. And so after he said what he said, I said to him, okay, so we'll do a CT scan to see what is going on. I said, what are your assumptions that this pain can be? And I was very pleased that he looked me straight in the eye and he said, endometriosis. Now remember, my daughter doesn't have her uterus. She had a full hysterectomy, no uterus, she doesn't bleed. And this is now nearly 5 years later. And recall what I'm just saying? And he said she most likely has endometriosis. And I was very pleased to hear it from him. Not that she has endometriosis, but the fact that he knew that endometriosis is today one that happens in the body without having a uterus, without bleeding, without having ovaries. And this was to me very, very important to hear this, that he said very, very clearly that she has most likely new endometriosis that is around her kidneys, around her urethra, around her bladder, behind her kidneys. Maybe it's located on her spine and attached to the kidney, and it's pulling. And remember what I said, that endometriosis that lives outside the uterus, that lives in your bodily cavity, it creates its own period. But the period doesn't come out because it's not in the vaginal canal. And this blood causes tremendous inflammation. And the inflammation is what hurts so much. You have inflammation and then you have pulling and choking organs up from the endometriosis that you have outside you outside your uterus, outside your vaginal canal. So we did the CT scan. So the first thing they found, and thank God it's benign, she has a tumor on top of her kidney. So that's #1. So bingo, that's #1. Then she has endometriosis. So again, this is my point that I am making to everybody, that you have to understand, just because somebody tells you have a hysterectomy does not mean that you will not have endometriosis. And this is a black on white case with my only child who suffered over 32 years from this condition. And so I happen to know so much about the subject. I happen to know so much about the subject that I probably, because of the suffering of my only child, I probably am the number one authority to speak about it, so as a mother, so as a human being, and so as a professional. And what I am trying to say to all of you, and what I am trying to emphasize, is that do not let anybody, please, nobody, do not let anybody tell you what you fear. And do not let anybody to disregard what you fear. My daughter, with all the misfortune that she has, but she's very fortunate because she has me, and I'm her advocate. But you don't have me. You have me here. You have me here because I'm sharing information with you, so you have me. I'm sharing information. I'm giving you the tools. I'm empowering you. I'm letting you know that it is not okay to poo-poo your pain, that endometriosis does really hurt. Why it hurts? Because it creates havoc in your body, because it creates inflammation. And when you have constant inflammation, and if nothing else makes sense to you, because I'm talking in an abstract way, everybody has a mother, everybody has a grandmother. And when people talk to you and they say, oh, grandmother, and she said, oh, I have so much pain in my knee, or I have so much pain in my back. What is the pain? If you have arthritis, if you have a bone or a ligament, anything torn or rubbing on each other, it creates inflammation. And inflammation in the body is what's hurting. So you have inflammation that endometriosis causes outside your uterus, it causes inside your body. And that endometriosis is very dangerous. And I actually heard a doctor, he was not from America, and he said that, I mean, he understands, and we all understand why they are not calling it cancer. But endometriosis has all the symptoms and all the look-alike of cancer, but there is no cure for it. So cancer, in many cases, you can excise the cancer, and then you do chemotherapy and do your radiation, and in some cases it's very successful. But for endometriosis, there is no treatment. The only treatment is to excise, cut out, and burn the endometriosis in your body. So there's no other solution. You cannot take a pill, you cannot take a vitamin, and everything. When you go on social media, and there are men and women and they make like, they talk like they're talking out of authority, and they are telling you so much garbage, so much nonsense out there about, oh, they talk to you a nice talk, and then they are selling you, or take this tablet, take this vitamin, take this supplement. It is all a lie. It is all a lie. No supplement, no tablet will get rid of your endometriosis. Doesn't exist. It will not stop it. If you have endometriosis, you have endometriosis. The only way to get rid of it is to excise it, to cut it out. That's the only way to get rid of endometriosis. No vitamins will help you. No, it won't. It doesn't happen. Listen, I take a ton of vitamins. My daughter takes vitamins. If there was such a thing that I could give her vitamins, I would bring it from the moon. But it doesn't exist. No vitamins will take away endometriosis. I guarantee the one life I have on it, I guarantee no vitamins will take your endometriosis away. If you have endometriosis, it will multiply. Because that's what a parasite does. It multiplies. It has a perfect environment in your abdominal cavity to multiply. That's exactly what is going to happen. And so all this advice that you get on social media, or all these people that make themselves very important by talking about something that they know nothing about, it is wrong. It is horrible. And this is why I said, I don't care that you subscribe to my podcast, whatever. Don't subscribe. I don't care, because it's not important to me. What is important to me, that you share this information, that if you have a friend, if you have a sister, if you have a grandmother, if you have a mother, if you have anybody in your family or amongst your friends that does suffer, thank you, that does suffer from pain, that has endometriosis, that was already, please share this information, repost it. That's all I ask of you. Don't buy anything. I'm not selling you anything. Don't come to see me. Don't do anything. Just share this information. Because if I can avoid some girls, I couldn't avoid the fact that she couldn't have children. I couldn't avoid it. I'm asking, why? Why did it happen to my child? Why? And the only answer that I have is that maybe it happened for a reason. Maybe this is going to be my call. Suffered, so 14 to 49, calculate how many years. And I suffered with her, and all the surgeries that she has had, and all the excisions of endometriosis. And because she suffered so much pain, because she had stage 4 endometriosis, this became my calling. This is the only answer I can answer myself. Why did it happen to my only child? Why all this happened? And I think this is the only logical conclusion that I come to, is that I have the wisdom, I have the knowledge, I have the experience, first-hand experience. I am also a professional, so that I can talk to you about it, and I can share this information with you, and I can make people's lives easier. Look, people that come to see me in my Atlanta clinic or my Miami Beach clinic, and yes, there is a lot of women, and I specialize in all skin colors, and I'm an expert in black skin because that's my forte before I came to America, okay? So I specialize in dark and black skin. That's my number one forte. I understand how to treat the skin, but disproportionately, I can tell you from my clinic in Atlanta, and so in Miami Beach, disproportionately, a dark and black woman suffer from PCOS, endometriosis disproportionately compared to white women. This is just a fact. And the effects of endometriosis and PCOS and Cushing's disease and Hashimoto and diabetes and thyroid condition, insulin resistance, is what causes so many black women to be overweight and to have excessive facial hair and body hair. And this is how women end up in my clinics, because I do laser hair removal, and I do skin treatments, and I do discoloration. Because if you're a black woman and you are plucking from age 14 because you don't know anything better to do, because you don't know that there is a special laser for dark and black skin, and you don't know, and if you forget about it, if you live in rural areas, you definitely don't know. And then you are plucking, and when you pluck a dark skin, melanated skin, there's a lot of melanin deposit in the skin, and you are plucking it, and every time you try to get the hair, because you feel it, you don't see it, you feel it, but then you are pinching your skin, and black skin is 100 times more sensitive than white skin, you create a discoloration. And in dark and black men, when you have ingrown hairs, because the hair curls up and goes under your skin, creates discoloration. So by default, when I do laser hair removal treatments, by default I treat discoloration on dark women, and dark men, and I do laser hair removal. So many dark black women, black men come to see me, because I am, as far as black skin goes, the undisputed expert in the United States when it comes to dark skin, because I treat dark skin, but really dark, not brown, dark, black skin, African skin. So I came with that knowledge and education expertise when I came to America 40 years ago. So I get to see so many black women that come to me, and I always said that I should have $1 for every tear that every black woman that comes to see me and sits on this table, or this bed, or my bed, I'm in Miami, or sits in Atlanta, and they cry and they say, Miss Eva, I am so embarrassed, I am so upset, I don't let my boyfriend, my husband, to kiss me or to touch me because I have bristles. I shave at 7 a.m. in the morning, and at 2 o'clock I already have a shadow of hair growing. And I'm so embarrassed, and I'm so ashamed, and I don't want to have sex because I am embarrassed about this. So, and people and women cry because women don't want this. And I hear this, I understand this, because I lived it with my only child. And the first laser for dark skin I purchased for my only child. So I need you to understand that I understand the suffering. I understand the pain. I understand the tear, because no woman in this world, not one woman in this world, would want to look like a man. Not one woman in this world wants to walk around with a beard. Not one woman in this world wants to be overweight. But this is part of the condition. This is part of the condition, because when you have PCOS, when you have endometriosis, you have insulin resistance. That's just what it is. And if you have insulin resistance, you can do yoga and stand on your head every day for 2 hours and you will not lose weight. You will suffer. Listen, know it from my only child. There is not a diet that my child didn't try. Didn't help. If she can go and fast for 2 months or eat only once a day, go do this exercise, this program, and she would lose 5 pounds when everybody else would lose 30 pounds, because insulin resistance doesn't allow her to lose weight. So do I understand this? Do I speak the truth? Do I speak pain of my only child and of all the children that come to see me? Because all of you are my children by default. By default, you all become my children, because I feel for you, because I feel your pain. I have empathy. I have compassion. This is why at my age, I sit and I talk and I write and I research and I put information outside, because I want to help women. I want to help women if I can help some women and educate them. And so you can advocate for yourself, and you never accept. So if you take anything from this conversation, never accept a doctor poo-pooing your feeling and your pain. Never accept it. If you have pain, you have pain. And if they poo-poo it, move away, find somebody else. So don't accept a doctor saying to you no. Don't accept the fact that you have a full a beard of hair and the doctor tells you, no, I did blood work, it seems to be normal. Just go lose weight. Don't accept that, because that is also a lie. That is also bullshit. That is also a lie, bullshit, and the cop out of every physician that gives you this answer. Because you cannot lose weight. No matter what you do, you cannot lose weight. Let me give it to you in writing. You cannot lose weight no matter what you do, because the insulin resistance works against you. You will look at food and you will gain weight. Don't have to touch it. Just look at it. The bottom line is, and this is something that everybody has to understand. So when they disregard you, you don't have me to go and fight for you, but you have the information that I am giving you. You have the tools, and I'm telling you the pain that you have is real. The hair that you have on your face is real too. Losing weight will not change your hair. And if anybody tells you you do a diet and by doing a diet your hair will stop growing, it's a lie. It's bullshit. Doesn't happen. Do understand one thing, and one thing only. When you have hormonal imbalance in your body, when you have hormonal imbalance, Tony, hi honey, when you have hormonal imbalance in your body, by the way, so you guys, I'm on many platforms. So here is my adopted daughter. So Tony is my adopted daughter, and Tony can write, can say a few words there if she's still there. And then she came up. I didn't know that she was going to come up, so this was not planned. But going back to the subject of people or doctors disregarding your feelings and disregarding what you are feeling is wrong. So if you have unwanted hair, no diet will help to get rid of unwanted hair. You have to understand that. And if you have insulin resistance, no diet will help you. No diet will help you to get rid of the weight that you have, because you have insulin resistance and the insulin works against you. Insulin works against you, the resistance, and you cannot convert in your body. Because you have an insulin resistance, you cannot convert like anybody else can convert. Can convert fat to energy, can convert sugar to energy. You can't do that because the insulin doesn't allow you. And so you will never lose weight. You will never lose weight. And my daughter only lost weight now because she's taking these injections, and they are helping her. But even with these injections that she's taking now, I don't remember I think she takes Manjaro, if it was Ozempic before. But even with this, if you took the amount of injection of the ampoules that she's taking, a regular woman that doesn't have endometriosis, PCOS, they would lose in let's say in 3 months, they would lose 20 pounds. My daughter only loses 4 or 5 pounds. Why? Because still the insulin resistance is there and it works against her, but somehow it's trying to balance it out with these injections. So all I am sharing with you, all I am telling you is that everything you feel, everything you experience, everything you have, all of it is valid. There are valid feelings, there are valid, this is valid pain, there is valid unwanted hair, there is valid weight gain, there is valid depression. All of it is totally valid. Everything that you have and you experience is totally 101% valid. And if a doctor doesn't validate it, move on and find another doctor. But the tools that I'm giving you, so I have guides, like there are links and you can find out. I actually wrote out some guides for you guys that you can get, that you can read, that you can download. And these guides give you the tools, give you the information that I provide, but you have it in writing, so you can get it, you can buy it, you can download it, and it will you have it in your hand, so you can learn from it and you can have it. So when you go to a doctor, and this is something that I want everybody to understand, when you go to a doctor and the doctor does blood work, and you have PCOS, you have endometriosis, you have Cushing's disease, and they say, okay, do blood work, because they don't know so much about your disease. And they tell you, and then the blood work comes back, and the blood work shows a little bit testosterone elevated. And the doctor says, lose weight and you will lose the hair, and take Vaniqua, for instance. Because I know people, the doctors say this. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. This is not true. This is not how it works. This is not how it's supposed to be. First of all, when they tell you take Vaniqua, Vaniqua is something that blocks the hair for at the moment. It just blocks it. It doesn't stop the hair growth. It blocks it. The moment you stop using Vaniqua, you have an explosion of hair. So it's bullshit. It's a band-aid. It doesn't work. Okay, so that's number one. Now, when a doctor does blood work on you, and this is something that everybody has to understand, when a doctor does blood work, and they do blood work and it shows that, yeah, testosterone is a little elevated, but he never went any farther. He never did deeper work and checked deeper, checked your androgens, and wanted to do an ultrasound, asked for free floating testosterone. He never did that. He just does regular blood work, and the regular blood work shows that you have a little bit elevated testosterone. But the doctor does never, because he's not knowledgeable, and a lot of doctors are not knowledgeable. The meaning that he has an MD or DO behind him doesn't mean that he's knowledgeable. Doesn't mean. And particularly when you're in rural areas, even in Miami, you can have doctors and surgeons that are morons. I'm sorry, but these are the facts. So, for instance, when they tell you, nah, your hormones are fine. No, they are not. Because I will just give you one example. When you have free-floating testosterone, a majority of doctors do not know to ask for free-floating testosterone as a blood test. As a blood test, okay? So for instance, if you do go to the doctor, my personal opinion is either to go to a super knowledgeable gynecologist, but the better chances you have is to go to an endocrinologist, because a good endocrinologist will know everything that there is to know about your condition, and they will do blood work. Endocrinologists will ask for free-floating testosterone. Now, what is free-floating testosterone? Free-floating testosterone is a testosterone that only happens about 2 days before you get your period, when you ovulate. But this free-floating testosterone this free-floating testosterone can be 2,000 times higher than your regular testosterone, and for 2 days then it goes up and shoots to 2,000 when it should be very, very low, when the regular testosterone shows low, but the free-floating testosterone shoots up to 2,000. This, and it does it only for 2 days. Do you know what happens? When it shoots up, and it gives so much testosterone into your bloodstream, this free-floating testosterone is now supplying all the hair follicles in your body, all the hair follicles for a full month, and it's shooting. If you look very carefully, there are blood vessels here. This is your hair follicle. There are blood vessels here at the bottom. There are blood vessels. And these blood vessels carry blood into each hair follicle, and the blood carries hormones, the blood carries oxygen, and the blood carries nutrition. And because free-floating testosterone is so high and it gets absorbed into the blood system, the blood is supplying the hair follicles with so much testosterone, and it stimulates other hair follicles that are dormant. It stimulates other hair follicles that the regular blood work that the doctor did and told you to do, and it showed your testosterone is just a little bit elevated, no big deal. But this free-floating testosterone never asked for, and this free-floating testosterone is stimulating your hormones. It's stimulating them, and this is what's happening inside your body. And suddenly you get all these hair follicles that were germinated from the free-floating testosterone for the hormones, and this happens every month when you have hormonal imbalance, but doctors don't know to look for it. There are some doctors that know, but a lot of doctors don't know to look for it. So you get free-floating testosterone, and this free-floating testosterone creates havoc on your body. But doctors don't know this, because they were not educated about the subject. And if you can tell me, like, oh, Eva, how is that possible? But I'll tell you, I'll share with you how that is possible. So when you go to medical school, you study, and I think you study general medical school, you study a little bit of everything, okay? A little bit of everything. But you don't study deep down. You don't study, you study a little bit of everything. And then if you become a general practitioner or you go into a specialty, then you learn your specialty. So you become an eye surgeon. You don't study about ovaries. You know, you go into specialties, you don't study. And whatever you acquire in knowledge comes with experience, with years of experience. You have to experience, you have to learn, you have to love your profession, you have to want to know a lot about it, and you have to want to educate yourself, exactly what I do. And I do this for over 30 years. I want to learn, I want to educate myself, I want to know. So I do that, I educate myself. But I can tell you de facto, factual. And listen to me very carefully. This is why I'm asking every woman to become her own advocate. Every woman, speak for yourself. Please, speak for yourself. Remember that you and only you can love yourself. Nobody will love you as much as you love yourself. And you have to become your own advocate. And if you feel something that it's wrong, then believe that it is wrong. Trust your inner instinct. Something is wrong. Trust your feeling. Trust the pain that you have, that something is wrong inside your body. And don't trust the doctor that tells you or poo-poos you that nothing is wrong. I will give you physical examples of physicians that I treat. So in Miami, black physicians. So in Miami, so in Florida. Now, why I specify black physicians? Because I specialize in black skin. This is my expertise. And they are lovely, lovely human beings. But they know nothing about hair. They know nothing. They don't know 10% of what I know about the human anatomy and human hair. So they don't know. So when they came to me, I had to educate them. Exactly how I'm educating you, educate them about hair. I educate them about hair follicle. Educate them about endometriosis because they don't know. They graduated school. And here is something that I always emphasize that is really important to understand. You graduate doctors in America every year. I don't know, 1,000 doctors. I don't know how many doctors exactly graduate from all kinds of school. But do understand this. And this is something that I think is very important to understand, because this is something that I know. I did a research about the subject and I wanted to know why this is the way it is. When you go to rural America and you go, so if you are not in Miami, if you're not in New York, if you're not in Los Angeles or Boston, hypothetically, and you go to rural areas, the medical care in rural areas will be much worse than the medical care that is given to you, let's say, in a cosmopolitan, in a big city. And I'll tell you why. Or the choices that you will have with medical care is 1,000 times worse than the choice that you would have in a big city. So if I took my daughter and I am in Miami, or I will be in Atlanta proper, I go and I have the option to choose the right doctors and research. Like I told you, because my daughter is back, square one. She has no period. She had a hysterectomy. She has no ovaries. She's 49 years of age, and endometriosis invaded her body again. And so, but I will not repeat myself because this is something that I spoke now for a long time about, and I think you can replay this and listen to it. But when you live in rural areas, the knowledge of rural doctors is so minimal. You know that in a rural area, I had a client in Georgia, and I'm in a suburb of Atlanta, and the woman said to me, because we're in a suburb in rural Georgia, and she had a 9-year-old boy that broke his lower arm in school. And so she took him to the hospital, where in this little village, it's about 40 minutes south of Atlanta. And she took him to the hospital. It's a rural hospital. And they couldn't set the cast in there because they didn't know, because the doctor that was he's not trained to setting gas. So they had to take her they took her to Columbus, Alabama. Yeah. So they sent them to Columbus to set to another hospital, a bigger hospital, to set the arm in a cast. This is what you get in rural areas. So if you're a woman, and if you're a white woman, if you're a black woman, if you're a Hispanic woman, and you live in rural areas, and you have unwanted hair, and you have painful periods, the chances of you finding, and you have heavy clothes and you have heavy periods, the chances of you finding a knowledgeable doctor in the rural area is 0 to none. 0 to none. Because the doctors that are in rural areas are not knowledgeable. Now, why is that? Is it racist? No. But here's what happens. And this is that everybody has to understand. So you go to school, and in America, if you go to a medical school, it costs you maybe $500,000 by the time you are done. Now you're graduated, you studied, you're graduated, you have that title MDDO behind or in front of your name, whatever. You have to eat, you have to get a job, you have to pay for your car, you have to pay rent, you have to start paying your school loans. So what do? You apply for jobs. And there is only one New York, one Miami, one Atlanta, one Boston, and one Los Angeles. And there are only so many hospitals. I don't know. In Atlanta, maybe there are 3 big hospitals. In Miami, you have maybe 5 big hospitals or 6 big hospitals. So you have 1,000 or 2,000 students that graduate every year, become doctors, but there are only maybe 50 hospitals in America that are big hospitals. And these hospitals don't necessarily have openings. So if you would get a job in one of these big hospitals, you are very lucky. 99.9% everybody that graduates from school will get a job in rural areas, in small hospitals. And you are sent into this hospital, but these hospitals, you have no experience, you have nobody to learn from, because even the other physician that is there, he graduated 2 years ahead of you, and he's now the oldest, most senior doctor that is in that hospital, in that ER, and it's a small hospital, but you need a job. You need to pay for your rent, for your food, for your car, you need to buy some clothes, and you need to pay your loan back. So you are sent to rural areas, and this is why you have bad medical care. Because these are new doctors, they graduated, they don't know, they know very little. They don't know about free-floating testosterone. How would they know? If they took my course, if they learned from me, then they would know. But they learned in medical school, and they didn't learn in details anything and everything about hair. They learned nothing, maybe in generalities. But they know nothing about hair. They know nothing about the effects of hormones of hair unless they specifically study endocrinology. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when you go, and so finding a knowledgeable doctor is very hard. And this is why I'm telling you, I don't care if you subscribe. I care that you share my information. I care that you get the guide that I put on my homepage everywhere. That's what I care about. So that you get the information, that you have the tools in your hands, that you know what doctors you should look for, that you know what tests you should ask for, so that you have the tools in your hands, and that you finally start advocating for yourself. That is very, very important. Advocate for yourself. Nobody will advocate for you the way you will advocate for yourself. And believe yourself, and don't let anybody discourage you and tell you that what you feel is being poo-pooed on. Nobody should poo-poo what you feel. What you feel is real. Your pain is real. You have an inflammation, you have a chronic inflammation when you have endometriosis and PCOS, chronic inflammation in your body. But nobody is asking, nobody is checking the markers of inflammation in your body. They are not trained to test that. But I am trained by default, because I suffered, because my only child suffered from it so much. I suffered with my only child. So this is important. This is what you have to understand. Okay, just a second. Let me do this. No, okay, just a second. Okay, so this is what is important for you guys to understand. You need to advocate for yourself. You need absolutely to speak up for yourself. You need education. Remember, knowledge is power. And when you have knowledge, you have power in your hands. This is why I created this guide, so that you have the tools in your hands, and you can get it on my home pages. You have the tools in your hands, because you don't have me next to you. So you need the tools, you need to know. So the endocrinologist should be the choice of doctors that I choose for you. It would be an endocrinologist, because he will know what to look for. And he will not just do blood work and say, hey, okay, your testosterone is just a little bit elevated. It is that much more complex. that much more complex. And I will give you that final thought in my head. The final thought in my head. All that information that is given out on social media, 99.9% is wrong. 99.9% people do it for self-interest, whether it's men that know shit about women's pain, body, and suffering, and they are making it for clicks and for money and for hacking you some vitamins. Wrong. Whether it's skinny, beautiful women that are size 0, blue eyes and blonde hair, and they talk about endometriosis, they know nothing about 2, because no size 0 or 2 can have endometriosis, because when you have insulin resistance, you cannot be size 2. Let's just say that. If you have hormonal imbalance, you're not size 2 or size 0. So they are again lying to you. They are again doing it for their own pocket and for their own self promotions. And then when you have influencers, which is the worst thing in the world, because an influencer is usually a pretty girl with very little brains, and her brains are only to make money. So either she gets dressed naked, or she does other things and she becomes an influencer, or she puts them filters and she becomes beautiful via the filters that she puts on. And then she gets a promotion from a company, and she's selling you the Brooklyn Bridge 5 times over. But because she's beautiful, because there are 10 filters in front of her that make her even more beautiful, and because she has 500,000 followers, because she's twerking her ass in your face, she is the one that is giving you the information about endometriosis. That's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. And this is why I'm saying to you guys, don't subscribe, just share the information, but only if you think that what I am saying to you is factual, is honest, is good information, only then share it. Don't share it because I said so. I only want you to share it if you think that what I am saying you is the real thing, is the McCoy thing. And I'm sharing with you good information, then share it. Because that's the only thing, that is the only purpose that I have. Right now, whilst I'm talking to you, whilst I am doing this on my free time, trust me, I could be doing now for an hour and a half something completely different. I would like to go home and I would like to spend time with my dogs. I have a lot of dogs. I have a lot of rescues. I have a lot of work at home. But I'm sitting here in the clinic, I'm talking to you because it's my calling, because I believe, or I want to believe, maybe I'm wrong in believing, but I want to believe that God gave my daughter this punishment of having no children, of having from age 14 miserable suffering, of having 32 years of pain and suffering, of having 18 surgeries, losing 75% of her organs, for 20 years being injected every period that she had with morphine by me because the pain was so excruciating. So God gave her this gift, but that gift eventually got stuck on me, and because I'm her mother and I would do anything to help her. But when I questioned it, and you often as a parent question, why my child? Why? The conclusion that I come from, the conclusion that I come to, that the only reason that this happened is because I have a mouth, because I'm not shy, because I'm not afraid, because I'm not afraid of adversity, because I'm not afraid to speak up, because I have elbows, because when I believe and I have a conviction that I am right and that I'm speaking something that really can help people, I will fight to my last breath. And this is probably why God gave my daughter this horrible gift and made me be the one who suffered through her, because as my only child, I suffered with her, and I acquired all this knowledge, all this experience, and got so much expertise in the field and made it this way so I can talk to you. I can talk to you, I can share with you, I can put out the information, even at times when social media doesn't want me to, when social media blocks me, when social media gets rid of my YouTube channels, when social media does a lot of things that doesn't want me to provide you the information because they just don't want to, whether it's pharmaceutical companies, that need to make money, whether it's the medical field that needs to make money, whatever it is reason, whether politically they don't want the previous government for sure didn't want a black woman to have the knowledge and the power. They just wanted them to be like a herd of sheep and follow what they are being told. And I come and I have elbows and I speak the truth and I speak the facts. So the fact is that maybe this is why it happened to my only child, and this is why I am here today at age 70, sitting down and talking to you and telling you categorically, don't subscribe. I don't care if you subscribe. I am not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for fame. I have my own fame. I don't need fame from anybody, but I need you to share this information. If you think that the information can help somebody, is valuable, then share it. That's all I want. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will say this. If you have questions, if you want to know anything about hormonal imbalances, about PCOS, about laser hair removal, about unwanted hair, about discoloration, about heavy period, about blood clots, about anything and everything pertaining to women that suffer from PCOS, endometriosis, Hashimoto, Cushing's disease, insulin resistance, diabetes, thyroid condition. If you have questions, feel free to text me, feel free to email me, feel free to DM me. If you want to make an appointment with me in my clinics, whether it's in Atlanta or it's in Miami, you want to come, you want to talk to me, you want to cry, you want to share your pain with me, you can call me and we can make an appointment, we can sit down. As I said, I have tremendous amount of empathy. I have tremendous amount of understanding and feelings because I know how much my daughter suffered. And my daughter suffered since she was 14 years of age. So my phone number is 305-864-3333. 305-864-3333. Or you can email me to my MedSpa 33154 at gmail.com. That is MedSpa 33154 at gmail.com. You can email me there and ask me questions, just DM. And I will always answer you. And I can promise you this. If I don't have an answer, I will tell you I don't know, I don't have an answer. I will never lie to you. I will never tell you something that is not factual, that I wholeheartedly believe it is so. So with that, I'm saying ciao, ciao, gute Nacht, auf Wiedersehen, and adios, and I will be back again in the near future. Hold on, I'll just have to close the first one here. Okay, can I close? Just a second, guys. And I will read the messages. Okay, I will read the messages if